define the type of, all it's going to do is it's going to randomly generate a bunch of rectangles. So, randomly generate rectangles. Let's talk about what a rectangle needs. An X position, X and Y coordinates, height, and a width. Right? Rectangle is a two-dimensional shape. So when you generate this rectangle, it should be a struct. Okay? To make a struct rectangle, it should have those values. Every rectangle should have should keep track of its X position, its Y position, its height, and its width. After randomly generating those, and when I test your code, I'll just say, you should have a variable called like number of rectangles. I should, just as we did today, where I can change the number of users on the fly. Right? And instead of 3,000 users, I could have, what is this now? I lost count. 300,000. Right? Have some variable where I can change how many rectangles it generates. And then you should test or check for collision or overlap. None of the rectangles have to be moving, and it doesn't have to resolve collisions. Step 1 should be generate a bunch of rectangles. Step 2 should be go through that list of rectangles. Ask them their X and Y positions, figure out their height and their width, find out if they're overlapping. Let's talk a bit about how you can tell if one rectangle is colliding with another rectangle. Because none of this is going to be visual, right? This is still just the computer keeping track of the information. Let's say you have a rectangle. I'll call it rectangle 1. It's at 0, 0. Its height is 1, and its width is 1. And then I've got rectangle 2. He's at 0, let's say 25.5. And he has the same width and height. Are they colliding? Is there any overlap to rectangles?
Oh, wait, 1 and 1? Yes.
Right, this is coordinates. And this is size.
Oh, okay. Then no, they're not moving.
Let's talk about what coordinates means for an object. For this assignment, it's not super important, but there's a thing called a pivot point or an origin point. I'm trying to think if I've heard of it called anything else. Point of origin point, pivot point. It's usually called origin point. When you refer to something's X and Y coordinates, the question is, where are those coordinates in relation to the object itself? For example, if I said there's a rectangle at 0, 0, is the origin point of that rectangle in the center? Is it at one of the corners of the rectangle? Now, for this assignment, you don't have to worry about this too much, because I want all rectangles to have their pivot points in the same place. So let's just pretend that for all of our rectangles, their origin point is in its uppest, leftest, most point. Okay, so it's top left corner. So if I have a rectangle whose top left corner touches 0, 0 in two-dimensional space, and I have a rectangle whose top left point touches 0.5, 0.5, and they both have a size of 1, are they overlapping?
Yes.
They are overlapping. Right? 'Cause they both extend beyond how the difference in their spacing. If anyone, I expect a lot of questions. Like I said, I'm assigning the homework now, and we still have an hour of class, so I'll be around to answer questions and stuff. But if we think about collisions, one of the easy things to think about is think about just one axis at a time. He's at 0 in the X, he's at 0.5 in the X. They both extend out 1. So if I were to pretend his pivot point in his top left corner, that means he's extending the amount of space he's taking up, right? His area covers from 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. This guy's area goes from 0.5 to 1.5 and from 0.5 to 1.5. So I know they're overlapping. As soon as this, the center of this rectangle should hit one of the corners of this rectangle. Again, there doesn't need to be any visual components to this assignment. It's just checking these stats against each other. Now you'll probably have to do a two-dimensional, you'll need, sorry, not a two-dimensional array, you'll need a one-dimensional array to keep track of all the rectangles, okay? So, 1D array of rectangles. They'll each have these variables, right? You'll have a struct with that information. When you're checking for collisions, you'll need nested for loops. Because you're going to want to compare every rectangle against every other rectangle. So if I have 10 rectangles, rectangle 0 needs to compare himself to 1 through 9. He needs to say, am I touching any of them? All right, good work. Then rectangle 1 says, am I touching 0, 3, 4, 5, everyone else? Right? Every rectangle has to compare themselves to every other rectangle. Anyone have any questions? Does everyone understand the concept at least?
I understand the concept now. So where their coordinates are, we have to check each time, basically.
Yep.
But their size, as long as their squares, how do we know their squares are overlapping, like on the field of a plane? Like, are all their sizes going to be the same, 1, 1?
I want those sizes to also be randomly generated.
So
I might even put like a little more information.
Hard.
Basically, check his x coordinates first, right? Just do it one dimension at a time. If his x coordinates, actually, man, I haven't written bounding box in a long time. Let me make sure I'm saying the right thing. Give me a second. Kind of hard talking about it in theory without drawing it. Pivot point. Okay, so if you can take the pivot point for an object, in this case it's x and y coordinates, and if those x and y coordinates are, let's say for his x, if his x coordinate is greater than the starting of another box and less than the end of another box, they must be overlapping.
Okay.
I might, you know what, you bring up a good point. I might talk more about collision then. There's 4 corners to a box. We don't have to worry about axis. There's no rotation in this assignment, so axis-aligned bounding box is fun. An example we just said, this. Cool. So yeah, so if the x position, let's say that their origin points are these topmost corners, right? You can check every corner against every other box. So you start with one of his corners. And one corner of your box is just going to be his x and y coordinates, okay? And if his x and y coordinates are between the bounds of another box, they must be overlapping. And I recommend checking for all other corners.
How many rectangles?
Should really bring markers to the side.
And how many rectangles?
As many as I say. There should be a variable. So start with just setting up your program right? If there's going to be a list, if you're going to have a one-dimensional array, we should be able to change the number of that array every time. Just as we did with this assignment. Right? We had, here we go, roster length. And if I change that, it's going to scale everything up. So start with just generating the boxes and making sure you have an array that keeps track of all the boxes. All right? Start with just the basics of what you know you need. Like right now, you all know that you need a struct. maybe you can call it rectangle. And what do we have to store for every rectangle? Coordinates, so an x position, a y position. What else? What is a rectangle?
Four sides.
Four-sided object.
Two are equal. Two are longer or smaller equal.
It has two pairs, right? The opposite sides are always equal to each other in a rectangle in length. So you need a height and a width for every rectangle. So an x position, a y position, a height, and a width. That's going to give you everything you need for all the rectangles. And for checking collisions, the first thing you can do, just to rule them out, is say if the difference in their x positions is greater than or less than the difference in their sizes. If you're standing all the way over at the 500-meter point, and I'm at the 1-meter point, one of us need to be really, really big for us to be overlapping. If you're 500 meters away, but I happen to be 250 meters wide, and you're 250 meters wide, maybe we'll have a collision, right? Because, as you know, I have to be 500, you have to be 500 if our center points. Man, this is hard to do without drawing everything. Everybody have a notepad, and we'll kind of talk it through a bit. Maybe we'll even bring up paint, actually. All right. So here's one box, and here's another box. And let's say all the pivot points are going to be the top left coordinate. All right, so when we say that this guy's at a coordinate, we're saying the coordinate is his top left corner. If the difference, let's say this is 0 on our x, and this is 9, and they're each 1 unit wide and 1 unit tall. What's 9 minus 0? There are 9 units separating these two objects. They're only 1 unit wide. They can't be colliding in the x. Right? That was just looking at the x-axis. But when we said that one of these was at 0.5, right? The difference is less than their sizes. Right? Because from 0 to 1, from 0 to its other side, its other corner, that's 1 unit away. So you need to check to make sure that they're overlapping in the x and they're overlapping in the y. If they're overlapping in both, they must be overlapping as objects. So something like this. Let's say rect I.
So rect is probably the struct.
That is an array full of structs. Now, what do I have to do? There's one thing wrong with this code right now. Does anyone know what it is? Two things I keep saying that you want to compare against each other. With you want to compare their sizes against
their origin point.
Correct. Their distance from each other. So how far away they are versus how big they are. If you're 1 million miles away, but I'm 2 million miles wide, we're going to be overlapping. So the one thing wrong with this is you need the absolute value of the difference in their x values. Right? When you compare x values, when you subtract an x value from the other one, you're only going to get the distance if you put it to absolute value. So I go in here. I'll make a new project real quick. We'll call this box physics. Cool. Let's import then. want to make sure I'm doing this right. In most languages, absolute value function is just called ABS. But I want to make sure I'm importing the right, the C map has to include C map. Really? Do we have to input C map for that? Oh, maybe not. Maybe, okay, so, cool. All right, what's 3 minus 12? Not just 9. Negative 9. So I have to take the absolute value, which will end up being negative 9. And I guess I do need CMOS. Oh, sorry. Using namespace, activities. And so print it out, positive 9. The absolute value. Does everyone know what I mean when I say absolute value? Not the opposite. It'll just always be positive.
Okay.
The number is already positive. The absolute value of 9 is 9. The absolute value of negative 9 is also 9.
ABS stands for absolute value.
Yes.
Okay.
You're probably going to want to make a note of how to call the absolute value function. ABS. If you take the absolute value of the difference in their x positions, and it's less than their combined sizes, and the true is the same in their y positions, and their combined sizes in the y, then they're overlapping.